the Bell. Bloomberg's comprehensive cross-platform coverage of the U.S. market close starts right now.
And right now, we are 2 minutes away from the end of the trading day. Romaine Bostick alongside Scarlet Fu. We're counting you down to the closing bell, and here to help take us beyond the bell. It's a global simulcast with our friends Massar and Simone Foxman filling in today for Tim Stenovic. Welcome to our audiences across all of our Bloomberg platforms. Massar, stocks pretty much where they are. Last time we spoke about an hour ago here, not far off session lows.
Yeah, not seeing any buying, right, in the last few minutes or last hour of trading. No, not at all. What's interesting is we just talked with Aaron Kennan over Clear Harbor, and, he said the kind of instability we are seeing in Washington, he does think about it, and he says it doesn't really instill much confidence, if you will, when it comes to investors. He said we're looked at as a country that there is compromise, that we are able to find common ground. That's the history of this country. And so he does think about it a little bit when it comes to certainly how it can impact investments and maybe how he trades for his investors.
And you have to wonder if investors are just focused on the scenes playing out, the debate happening on the House floor in Washington as we get, this debate around the motion to potentially vacate the speaker. Everyone is kind of holding their breaths a little bit right now.
Yeah, we averted a shutdown this time around, but no one knows what's going to happen in mid-November when the spending plan then expires once again, the stopgap measure, and we can do this all over again.
Yeah, and I think leadership is important. We were speaking with Christopher Ailman over at CalSTRS. He makes the point that, Wall Street, of course, tends to shrug off a lot of the nonsense that goes on in Washington, but we're talking about a speakership here that was already somewhat tenuous from the time he took over in January, and it's not quite clear who's going to take over for him and whether they're going to be somehow more cooperative, or what's the phrase you use, Carol? Something like about compromising.
Common ground,
Common ground, yeah. And I'm not sure. I feel like the deal McCarthy made was indicative of the common ground we need to see more of. Yet, of course, the people forcing him out are forcing him out because he went out and found that common ground.
Exactly. Right.
Dow Jones Industrial Average down 1.3% on the day, more than 430 points lower. We're going to close right around that 33,000 level. The S&P 500 lower by 60 points or 1.4%, closing right around 4,229. The NASDAQ Composite lower by 250 points, down 1.9%, closing at 13,059. And the Russell 2000 also down about 1.7% here on the day, closing out at 17,027 or 1,727.
I'm just going to say this is the kind of day where I don't have enough. I said this to Simone earlier. I don't have enough screens on my Bloomberg to kind of keep track of it all. Having said that, Romaine, great read in terms of the final numbers for those major equity averages. S&P 500.
Sorry, I just want to interrupt you
please.
just to go back to the speakership here. We are now learning that the actual vote to remove the Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy, is now beginning to take place. It's going to obviously be several minutes before we actually find out exactly what that vote is, but it's important for our viewers to know this is what's now taking place in your House of Representatives, a motion to remove the Speaker of the House, something that hasn't been done, not a vote that has not been done since 1910.
Right. We say unprecedented times, and you do wonder, what does this mean? What happens next? And that we're not seeing this common ground being found, this support, so that lawmakers can go about the business, the responsibility of their job to actually govern, find policies that are beneficial to everyone. So this is a rough time, I would say, again, in our history. Having said that,
and I'm sorry to interrupt you again, but I mean, this matters. And I know there are a lot of people in the markets will shrug it off here. But what you're watching right now is something that we have not seen in more than a century. And we should point out here, too, that just the procedure taking place right now, what they're doing, they're actually taking one by one a roll call vote of everyone. So normally everyone just kind of walks up, hits a button, and then they kind of move back on here. But they want this on the record, every single person here to know how they voted one by one here. So this is going to be a relatively long process that could go on for quite some time before we know the results.
They want their constituents to see them voting no or yes in support of the current speaker, Kevin McCarthy. And of course, this is happening right as we close the market on a very down day. You look at the number of decliners compared to advancers, more than 4 stocks lower for everyone that is down for a second straight day, Simone.
Yeah, I mean, there was easy to find some decliners today. Looking at Getty Images, that was getting cut to neutral at Redburn Atlantic. We saw a slowdown in sales there that apparently seems to be connected to slower advertising sales at firms like Google, Meta, Amazon, Snap. Their price target now $6 a share. We're looking at $5.61 right now, but that was after it was down about 12% today. Dish Network also taking the heat, shares down 7%. 7.9% we're looking at. Falling all day, two potential catalysts. Dish Network was actually the first company to be fined for space debris. It left a satellite in the wrong place in space. That's a $150,000 ticket.
How do you leave a satellite in the wrong place?
It's in the wrong space in orbit. It was a retired satellite, and they left it there.
It didn't have one of those Apple white discs on it where you can find everything.
It did not have an AirTag, or at least a working one, no. But also the company amending its merger pact with EcoStar. That's a $4 billion deal announced in August. EcoStar shares...
You have McCormick on this screen. That's a spice company?
It is
why
indeed.
Are they down? Have we stopped buying spices?
Lowest close since March 2020, actually. Net sales, coming in behind the average analyst estimate, but in particular, folks in China have stopped buying or aren't buying as many as the analysts expected as buying spices. So China's economic recovery apparently has been slower than anticipated. That, according to execs at the company, and we're looking at shares down 8.5%.
All right, so quickly to some of the gainers in today's session. This is a big one. I feel like this is the year where a lot of news has come out when it comes to the biopharma industry, whether it's deals or whether it's actually announcements about drug development. So let's get to Point Biopharma surging about 85% in today's session. Eli Lilly agreeing to buy the biotech company, $12.50 in cash. The stock just finishing below that level in a bid to expand its oncology capabilities in radio ligand therapies. And I want to mention Lantheus Holdings because that holds the worldwide license to Point Lead's drug assets. So it also jumped about 10% in today's trade. Intel saw it top of the NASDAQ 100. We saw a note to clients from KeyBank Capital that was out yesterday, which noted that NVIDIA and Intel are bright spots in a soft semiconductor chips market. So Intel, slight gain there, up 0.2%. And Warby Parker up about 3.4% in today's trade, upgraded to outperform from inline at Evercore ISI. They also announced a $20 price target for the company, and the stock finishing at 13 and change, just under 14. About 9% of the float is shorted, though, guys, on that one.
Yeah, let's go to the yield space here. And I actually want to start off with that 30-year yield. Right now, sitting at a higher by about 14 basis points than where it was just yesterday. 492 and change. At one point on the day, it flirted with 5%. And we should just point out, on an intraday basis, it was up about 17 basis points here. That was the biggest move that we've seen, higher or lower, going back to at least, it appears, since March or April of this year. And we saw similar moves on the longer end of the curve as well, with the 20-year up about 13 basis points, your 10-year up about 12. And meanwhile, the 2-year yield only up a measly 4.4 basis points here on the day. And it really begs the question here about that negative correlation that we're seeing between the yields, higher yields, and of course, lower equity prices here, and how much this is going to persist going forward.
Yeah, and you know what always gets my attention? The fact that the 20-year yield is such an outlier. It's yielding more than 5.10% compared to the 10-year and the 30-year. Of course, I asked Katie Greifeld about this, and of course, she had written a story about this not so long ago. But it has a lot to do with the lesser liquidity in that tenor.
Yeah, right, because it's not kind of, you look at those numbers and you're like, what's wrong with this read? Aaron Kennan, when we talked with him over at Clear Harbor, pointed that out, like it was an interesting kind of standout among the Treasury trade today.
I just want to mention, too, guys, just crossing the wire right now, some news on Intel, a redhead crossing the Bloomberg terminal, saying that the company is going to separate its programmable solutions group operations. Basically, it's going to operate it as a separate business here under the leadership of Sandra Rivera here, and that will begin on January 1st. So basically spinning off more or less its programmable solutions group beginning January 1st here. I don't know a lot about this particular division or exactly what it does, but
Stock's
investors...
up 2.7% in the aftermarket.
Yeah, so investors seem to like it, I guess.
But this idea of spinning off companies hasn't worked out very well for a lot of the companies that have been spun off, right?
Well, it depends on what the name. I mean, is it going to be like Intellanova or something like that? or
Intel 2.0?
Yeah.
And you actually
I'm
look
still trying to figure out what Kellanova is.
It's not Kellogg.
Because it's
that's
like snack foods. It's like, I mean, they could have named it Pringles. That would have been like very, very well, right? I mean, Pringles. Everyone knows Pringles, but Kellanova.
There is a WK Kellogg, not to be confused with WK Kellogg, but frankly, if you look at shares of companies that have spun off recently, Veralto, Vestis, Kellogg, they've all had these, WK Kellogg, they've all had these issues. For example, Veralto, this is its second day of trading, shares and closed down 9.5%.
Yeah, this is all about unlocking value. In a couple of years, they'll be back to unlocking value by combining everything, and everyone will be in love with conglomerates once again.
I don't know about you guys, but there's a lot going on, and we ain't even over yet.
I know. I got to get some Kellanova special K or something.
Kellanova for everybody. That would be a good cocktail name. I'd like a Kellanova.
A Kellanova.
Yeah.
I think of it less than cereal, but you know.
Yeah, it doesn't lend itself to snacks.
It sounds like a satellite that someone misplaced in space.
Floating around.
All right. We got to run.
I got a lot more jokes, Carol.
I
Do
can
we have time?
tell, like, 2 shows daily or nightly or whatever you say. All right, guys, that's a
You know
wrap.
Carol only works a 3.5-day week.
Stop that. You know I'm here a lot. All right, that'll do it for our
A
cross-platform
lot.
coverage.
She didn't say 5 days a week.
Radio, TV. Hey. Radio, TV, YouTube, and, of course, Bloomberg Originals. We'll see you again, guys, tomorrow.